Welcome to Combat Culture. Let me testify. So on this episode, you'll be getting to know Felicia Udogu more. Give a little backstory on your job, like your career, and like what you do so people out there, they can know.
I graduated from Florida A&M University, the highest on Seven Hills. And I went to the College of Pharmacy. I graduated in 2017. I started off as a home infusion pharmacist at a home infusion company. I wanted to do a residency, which is basically where you work in a more clinical setting. But God had me go a different route. And right after pharmacy school, I got the job with the home infusion job. And then a few months into that job, I lost my job. I was let go. It was tough for me. And I wanted to, remember I told you like how I wanted to start my own business. I wanted my pharmacy business to be based on helping people with their health journey, not putting them on medication, so more so managing and helping them with their lifestyle. That's what I wanted to do, and that was my goal. And that's my sister said, well, hey, since you didn't get a residency in that area, create what you want to do. And I followed that, and I started my own company. And I started that company while I was still there. So for me,
the company, shameless plug.
It's called Better Health Clinical Services. So when I started the company, I remember I told you I had a dream or I told you guys, I called you. I remember I was at work and I was just like, God told me I'm going to leave this place. So I was just like, okay, well, that must mean that the company that I want to start is about to blow up, you know? And y'all was like, what? You gonna leave? What you that's not no good news. But he told me that like months before I actually got laid off. So in February when I was laid off, I totally forgot about that. But I remember that moment during my hard times, and it was a reminder like I'm going to be with you. You know, so after I was let go from there, which was a hard time because you know you were in school there at that time for nursing. So it was a lot. I went to Walmart, and then on my way when I was at Walmart, I moved to Orlando. I got a PRN position at Walmart. It's just the hours were so unpredictable that I wanted to leave, and it was just frustrating for me. So I said, you know what, I'm just going to leave, and I'm going to go back home to my parents' house so I can focus on my business because my parents they don't live that far from Orlando. So I was just like, I can go and stay with them because it's not going to be that hard for me to find a job. That's what I thought. I'm a doctor, you know? Yeah, so I thought I would be able to find another job quickly. Like months, I actually gave myself some time to figure out what I want to do with my pharmacy career. I went to Walmart. I said, I'm going to come back home and work on my business. I had some meetings with some really big companies, and I was just like, oh, this is really going to turn out. It's going to be great for me. And then as fast as I got the meetings, the quicker I got the no's. And then at that point, our father was going through some health issues. A few months of me being there ended up turning to it was like a year, right? A little over a year without me finding a job. I was considering going to the military. I was considering so many different things because it was just like I was really suffering. Like it was to a point where my bank account was running really low. I got a severance package from my previous job because I was laid off, but it was running low because I was trying to build this business, and it took way longer than what I thought to get a job. So finally ended up getting a job at a place that I actually really wanted to work at. That's what I wanted to do at the beginning of my career, so I was happy to work there. So first job, I know it's a long story. First job, was laid off. Second job, I quit. Third job, I was fired. And this all happened in the course of 3 years. So it was like to the point where I didn't want to do pharmacy no more because I felt like God was telling me, you don't need to do this, because it's just like every door felt like the harder I tried, the worse it was for me. It's not like I'm, you know, a dumb girl, you know, like I'm not, nobody's dumb, but I graduated magna cum laude. You know, I got my doctorate degree in 6 years. I'm not saying this to brag, but I was letting you know I had the brains, but that still wasn't enough for me. For some reason, it just wasn't working out. So I was fired from that last job. My mom was like, hey, they have a temporary position at the current job I am now. Why don't you apply for that? I was like, I'm not going to apply no temporary position, you know, because I'm like, why am I going to apply for that? I'm a pharmacist. I don't need to do that. But I ended up applying for it, and now I'm I'm at a full-time position at my job, and I love it. I'm still here. I've been here for going on 3 years.
Yeah.
It's amazing. I work from home. I make good money. And I love my job. I love everything about it. It turned into a full-time position. And there's a lot more to the story, but if you're not in the field of pharmacy, it can get a little bit confusing. But basically, it was a long journey before I got to where God wanted me to get to.
Which is a blessing. And that shows people out there that sometimes you can do everything right and it still may not turn out the way that you expected. But at the end of the day, God's best will still be done for you. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of times, sometimes you go through stuff and it's your building and your molding process. And for you, when you went through all that type of stuff and you had those bad days, now you're at this position now. Do you even remember those people?
No, I don't even remember their name. A big part of my pharmacy business is like pushing health and helping people. And it's just like, I already seen it. I seen it happen. Like when we changed your diet, the things that happen with them. Yeah. But at a point in my life, I was a lot more fit. So it's just like, I was easily able to tell a lot of people things, but I didn't have the empathy because I didn't have that issue. But when I was going through my period of this, I gained a lot of weight. I went through a lot of depression, a lot of frustration. So now I'm applying that to myself. And now I'm getting back on my health journey. I'm working out more. I'm doing things, and I'm now more empathetic. And I feel like even God brought me through that. So with my business, it can be more successful because now I'm just not telling you. I can build a relationship because I understand. And I know that it's just so much more than big turning down your plate. Like it's so much deeper, like the inner I had to fix before I can change my outer. And I was able to, because of the job that I have now, I was able to get the therapy that I needed. I was able to just get so many things that I now see that God was all having play together so that I can take I out of it and I can do his will and not my own.
So during that time, that was your building time.
Yeah.
And during that building time, you learned a lot, you grew a lot, and it built up your faith. So when did you make the decision to buy a home, and what steps did you take to prepare yourself to buy a home?
I always knew I wanted to be a homeowner. I came back home after I left. I was looking for homes and things like that when I did not have a job. And I was just like, one day it's going to happen. But I really, really, really wanted my home for a long time, especially during the time where I didn't work in 2018. I remember I used to just drive to the neighborhood and I will like go there and just sometimes fall asleep in my car crying, confessing that I would get a house here and I didn't even have a job. And I knew for sure that the Lord was telling me, Felicia, it's time for you now to get your home when I was in my temporary position. And when I was in my temporary position, when God told me, okay, it's time for you to get the home, that's actually when the contract was ending. So I really was about to go again without having a job. And I said, God, am I hearing you correctly? Because like, how can I now buy a home, especially now that my contract, it could be possibly ending? Because it's like, even though I was able to stay past the contract, the hours were getting shorter and shorter. So it just looked really bleak of the type of work that I was going to be having. But that's when I know that God told me to buy a house. And you remember the way that it happened. We were staying in some apartments up the street. And then we were hungry that night. It was like, let's just go to Checkers. And then we were going to Checkers and they were doing some road work. And I was just like, okay, we're going to have to take this detour. And then when we took the detour, I was like, I didn't even know this neighborhood existed. And that was actually a year before the time that God reveals to me it's time for you to buy your home. So then when we went into that neighborhood, we was like, man, these houses are nice. Like we didn't know it existed because mind you, we lived here our whole life. Like pretty much you moved here was like, when I was like 10, you were like 13 or something like that, or 15. 15. So we never knew that neighborhood existed. When I came in, it was just like, man, this neighborhood is nice. And then when I went to sleep, the Lord showed me running in that neighborhood. When he told me to buy a house, I was just like, well, I already know that that's the neighborhood that he wants because that's where I seen myself running. So then when I went to, I was already kind of like, okay, is it really time for me to buy a house? Because I'm about to be losing my job. Well, I don't know if I'm losing my job, but my hours are very low. Like sometimes it will be work hours, weeks where I wasn't working at all because they didn't have any hours to give me. And that's when the Lord told me to buy my home. And then when I went to the place, they were no longer selling homes here. I was convinced that this is not actually God, but I continued to move because the way that it felt, it didn't feel forced. It wasn't a voice of something that would lead to frustration. And when God told me, it was actually a voice of peace. So that's why I wanted to continue with it, but everything around me wasn't making sense. But I kept pursuing it because that voice of peace kept telling me it's now.
How did you, because what culture says normally when you buy a home when you have so much money saved up, you've been at your job for so long, to make sure that you actually are going to have the money to make the monthly payment. But for you, your story is different because you went and bought your home when you had a temporary job. So how are you able to still move forward with the home buying process, knowing you're on a temporary job, also knowing that your past job situations, how they were, how are you able to do that?
Well, God reminded me that he was my source. I told you all about the process of me, going from being laid off to being quitting to being fired to being in a temporary position. But I never told you how during that whole period I never missed a car payment. Because I forgot to say, like, as soon as I got my first job, I bought my car. And that was in 2017. And I recently paid off my car and I never went without missing a payment. I never did. Even when I had a little bit of money left in the bank, before I ran out, God gave me another job. So it's just like he always kept reminding me, like, don't be focused on the things around you, be focused on me because I am your source. That and it was so much deeper because it's just like, even though it was a very dark time for me, the Lord was showing me that I'm your source more than just money. I am the source that will fill you up from the inside out. Because money is just a material thing. That car is a material thing, but he really had to break me down to build me back up in him because it was always a lot of I. So because of that, when I heard that voice of peace telling me, even though everything around me looked like it was crumbling, I remembered I was in this place before and God brought me out, so he's going to bring me out again.
Amen.
So I have my eyes set on a 4-bedroom, 1-story house and the place that I was going to look at. And leading up to that, like, it's just like every place that I was going to that I wanted to go, the first place where I would actually go to sleep in my car, like they were like, he was very rude to me. I said, I'm not going to give my money to, because he thought like I was a child, I couldn't, whatever he was thinking. He just didn't take me seriously. Then at the other house that I really wanted to go to, I didn't like, it just didn't feel right. Your friend, she told me about her realtor. So I called the realtor and he told me, let's just go look at some houses. And at first I remember I was crying. I was like, I'm not going to do this because it was going so fast because you gave me the realtor's number. He said, let's go look at some houses. And then they were sending me quotes for a house. And I'm like, this is going too fast. Like, I don't know if I lose my job. I started freaking out. And then God was like reminding me again, remember, I'm your source. Remember, I'm your source. So at this time, just to give you some background information, again, the company that I work at is multiple departments within that company. So the department that I was working on, because the hours were low, they had me doing a project in another company of my skill set of really what I really have in pharmacy. And basically that, because I was on that project, I was getting full-time hours because they didn't have any hours to give me. But that project was coming to an end. So now I was going back to my other department within the company where now I was basically getting no hours. And I was about to buy this home. But before I left, they was like, we really love the way that you work. And they knew if I went back to that department that it would be hard to get me to come on there full-time. So it's like, we want to give you an interview. Because I told them that I was interested in a full-time position. At that time, they were not even really hiring in that department. But they said, we're just going to interview you. The actual director said, we're going to interview you. So they set up an interview with me. I had the interview. Everything was simultaneously. Like the interview, me actually saying, okay, I'm going to move with the house. Everything was simultaneously. So it's just like, first I went with the house. The realtor was showing me different things. And then he was showing me different houses. I mean, the first house he showed me was a 4-bedroom house with Lennar. And I was just like, this house is way too expensive. Like, it was way overpriced. And I just started crying because it's just like, I was like, okay, God, you said now I'm actually being obedient and it's not working out. And then again, you reminded me, trust God. So I was like, okay, trust God. We waited a few days and realtor said, let me go and let's see what's going on. I'm going to look for some more places. So as he was looking, I had my interview. They set up the interview. So all of like, once I started the process, that's when God started opening up all other doors and the interviews, everything else. So first I said, okay, I'm going to actually contact this realtor. I'm serious about buying a house. I want to buy a house before the end of this year. And this was in October. So, and that was in October of 2021. So yeah, it was in October of 2021. I said like, I want to buy this home. I want to buy a home. So he was just like, let me look for some more houses. And then after that, I had the interview. And then we were also going to be going to Jamaica in November for my parents, because we got them a trip for their 35th, 34th, something. They've been
30 plus anniversary.
Yeah, 30 plus anniversary. We got them a trip to go to Jamaica, so we all went together. Right after I had the interview, then my realtor called me. He said, look, Felicia, basically I found this place. I know it's not the neighborhood you told me, but they were not even having homes right now. But now they're actually, they have a huge special on a house, and it's way bigger than what you told me that you wanted. But I mean, this is a deal that you don't want to pass up on. And I said, what's the name of the community? And when he said it, I said, are you, like, I told him, like, me and my sister both was like shouting y'all, because that's the same community that we stumbled upon a year before. And when God told me to look for the houses, they were not, like in the beginning, few months before, they were not built, they weren't selling anything. So when he told me, I said, yeah, I didn't tell you the name because I thought they weren't selling anything. He said, wow, so you really want to go there? I said, yeah. He said, I don't even know, because I wasn't even the realtor. My friend that works here, she called me out of nowhere. See, that's how God works. He had everything lined up, and it's just like, it didn't make sense to him, but it made sense to me. And I know it made sense in the spirit, because God was already moving those things, and it was already there waiting on me. But I had to trust him and know that, okay, it's time for me to move. Because at the end of the day, that's what the world tells you. Like, okay, you don't have your job, you're about to lose it. You don't have a consistent income. You don't have all of these things. But God said, but you have me. And at the end of the day, it's just like, I have it here waiting for you, but you have to first come to me. And when I came to him, that's when I was able to receive. Like, you know, a lot of people, when I said I was going to buy the house, they was looking at me like I was crazy, because people close to me knew what I was going through. So the fact that, you know, when I went through with it, and he said, I found this house, and the house that it was a 2-story home, over 2,000 square feet, 4-bedroom, 3.5 bath, way bigger than what I thought, because, you know, it's just me. So I'm like, what am I going to do with all this house? But it was cheaper than the 4-bedroom, 1-story house. And then God was like, this is your house. So I was just like, okay, like, I'm gonna go through with it. I'm gonna buy it. So I put down the payment, the down payment for the home, because I have been saving. Like I said, I wanted a house for a long time, so I've been saving up my money since pretty much I graduated. So I had the money in hand, ready to go. So it's just like, even though I was like, it was a certain amount where I said I'm not gonna touch that. And even with you, like, you'll be like, I'm going to pay more to bills so you can save up for your house. But I didn't even know I was going to be buying one. You was telling me, you know, like, I'm going to pay more so you can save up for your house. So I had the money in hand ready to go. And then when I signed the paperwork and, you know, we're getting the process started, a part of me, the enemy culture tried to creep in, like, you know, you made a big mistake, right? I'm like, well, I'm about to be going to Jamaica, so hey, at least I'll be happy and I won't think about it. And when I went to Jamaica, it's just like, that's when everything just, God showed out. Like in Jamaica, I got the call that, you know, they're starting the building process. Everything is completely approved. Then I also got the call that I got the position. You know, so it's just like, at the end of the day, all around, it's just like, when I trusted him, the windows of heaven just really poured out a blessing for me in every way. And he was just like, you see, when you trust me, you see that I am the source, and I gave you everything that you needed for this. I was just blessed, and I apply that to every part of my life now. Like, even with doing this, like, I've been off of social media for a long time. It's so much more of my testimony that I'll reveal as the Lord tells me to. But I've been off social media for a long time for personal reasons. So me coming back on camera doing this, it's definitely something I did not want to do. I know God told me to do it and to do this. This was your dream. You wanted to have the podcast, and then God said do it with her. And I'm like, well, I'm a pharmacist. I want to have my pharmacy business. I was just like, and I know I truly believe that God is working out a new thing just like he did before. I was trusting him as my source and letting him be my strength and everything.
Your testimony, buying the home process and with culture and everything that culture said to do, you went against the culture norms and you trusted God. And like you said, the windows of heaven was open for you. So I definitely want people to take that away of when God tells you to do something, move. Because he'll give you something bigger than you can even think or imagine. And you think about that one picture they have with the teddy bear where the girl wanted the little teddy bear, but God had something so much bigger for her. And that's basically what happened because you took the step to trust God.
And I want to say another thing too. Like, I know that's not really your question, but a lot of the times people, they think that, because even I'm in the process, I have been writing a book since 2020 and I'm still in the process of finishing it. And even with my editor, when she was reading so many things, she was just like, I never knew that she would go to this as a doctor. I just wanted to share this, like, people as celebrities, you see that they're on drugs, you see people that make it to the NBA, make it to the NFL, they'll ruin it, or they're still looking for something to fulfill them. Like, at the end of the day, what I did, what I accomplished becoming a doctor at 24, yes, it is beautiful, but at the end of the day, I want you to know that no matter where you're at in life, if you don't have the source, if you don't have God to fulfill you, will never be enough. Because I had my doctorate degree, but that didn't mean nothing to the world. They still didn't want to give me a job. I still, just because you have a degree of something, or because you have a status of something, it doesn't keep you from the world catching up to you. It doesn't keep you from being one paycheck away. It doesn't keep you from being homeless. If I didn't have my parents to go to, I would have been homeless. It doesn't keep you from also going through the same struggles of people in the world. What keeps you from staying afloat, what keeps you whole, what keeps you in the right place where you need to be to continue to go about and have fulfillment is God. And I want people to understand that no matter where you're at in life, that you need to have God as your source, and He's the one that's going to keep you grounded. He's the one that's going to keep you focused, because at the end of the day, like, I don't care what degree you have, if you just focus on that more than God, you will always show up unfulfilled.
What would you tell people out there what tips would you give them? What strategies would you give them when they want to do something like buy a home and they don't look like it's going to work out because they may not have the funds? Everything is not looking the way culture says it should look. What would you tell those people out there who are looking at this story and want to learn from you?
The first thing I would say is make sure you stay in your word. Make sure you stay in your word, because if you're reading your word daily, that's going to make sure you that's how you're learning the voice of God, because his words are there, and that when you learn his words, you learn his voice. So at the end of the day, with you reading your word, you'll know when it's God telling you to do something and when it's something else telling you to do something. That's the first tip that I have. Read your word, and when you read your word, you know God's voice. You'll know that it's God telling you to move. And when it's God telling you to move, as soon as He tell you to move. Don't say, okay, well, I'm going to start doing it like it's about to happen. Do it like it's already done.
Amen.
That's why I had the money in hand when God said, okay, now it's time, because I was always moving, like, even though a part of me was like, when is it going to happen? I was saving and doing things like it already has been done. Like, I knew that date was coming. So my thing is, stay focused, stay in your word. And when God tells you something, move like it's already done. If He told you that you're going to be a nurse or you're going to be a doctor, and right now you still struggling to get your GED, you move like you already got that degree. You move like it's already done. You move like, okay, I'm going to go in there, I'm going to do what I have to do because I'm about to pass this test. I'm going to get into this college and I'm going to get my degree. You move like it's already done, because it is. And He's just waiting on you to show up.
Like, what advice would you give someone on how to keep the faith when they're going at a very low point in their life? How to keep the faith even when everything around you, when you were at your lowest point, how did you keep going? How did you keep the faith even though everything around you looked like it was caving in? Tips you can give them on how to keep the faith and how you kept the faith in your journey even when things weren't working out the way that you wanted when you wanted it.
Keeping God at the center. And I know that the second point, a lot of people don't have. And that's why I really know that God said to create this podcast, because I want everyone to have that community if you don't have it. Fortunately for me, I had that community in my family. So God blessed me with the family that reminded me of who I am. And that really helped me to stay grounded and keep moving, because I was so blessed to have that. And I'm very tough, so I ain't gonna cry, but I really want to cry. Like, I'm crying inside. I really am grateful and blessed for that, because it really was times where I wanted to give up. You know, you were there. Like, it was times where I was saying that I'm going to run away to California with nobody in the bank. It was times where I was going off on my family. I was going off on my parents. I became a person that I didn't even recognize. They were patient with me. They loved me. They didn't condemn me, you know, and they reminded me of who I am and whose I am, and that helped me get back on track. And that's why I really want to have this, because there's a lot of people out there that feels empty and they don't know what it is that's pulling them away in this culture. It's telling you need to have this, you need to be that. And I really think about it, the things that I was so upset about was because culture was telling me as a doctor, I shouldn't be going through this. But as a child of God, I'm not never above learning a lesson. I'm not never above growing. And when I really look back, I had everything that I needed. I had my 2 feet, I had my 2 arms, I had my health, I had my family. You know, even people that had some disabilities, you still, if you could look at a point in your life And that's what really helped me, was at the end of the day, no matter what you have going on, you can look at least one area in your life that you had something that you once prayed for.
Yeah.
And that's what really helped me. Like, I was in pharmacy school once praying that I just get my degree, that I finally be done. You know, that I have a car, I got to keep my car. I had my degree. Nobody can take that from me. No matter what the world did, nobody can take that from me. It's like nobody can take away from you being a child of God. Nobody can take your connection to God unless you allow it. So that's what really helped me, was having that community, knowing who I am, standing on the word of God, that kept me grounded, and of course, and having the faith to move forward. And knowing that my circumstances determine who I am, but the Lord above does. I even at a point, because just like with a song from Jacqueline Carr, with what she was singing, and she was just like, everything that the enemy says you are is who you're not. So it's just like, I started making a list, everything that the enemy would tell me in my head that I'm not, I'll back it up in the word what God says who I am. That was really beneficial for me, because sometimes things of the world could get in your head, and you just need to have the swords of his word to come against that. Remember who you are.
So what points would you give for people to take away from this episode?
Whatever dream you have, take it to God and move it like it's already done. I want you to write down scriptures that helps you to stand on that. And everything the enemy is telling you right now that is going to prevent you from reaching what you want, I want you to write scriptures to say that I'm going to have it, because according to this, in God's word, it says that I'm capable. It says that I am enough. It says that this is for me. And we're going to leave some scriptures in there. Like, people, I know not everyone knows their Bible, so I'll even leave some different scriptures that I stood on in the comment section, description box for you all. But definitely having your swords ready, the word of God, believing and remembering what it is that you want to do right now. Whatever it is that you want to do, whatever it is that you want to become, I want you to write that down. Remember it, mark it this day, and I want you to come in agreement with heaven that it's already done. And I want you to stand on it, and do the work, the inside work, and let God use you, and go through what you have to go through. Not what culture says, but sometimes everything that looks bad isn't really bad, and it's building you. So just trust God, stay connected to him, and you'll get through it.
And one thing I could hear God saying to me while you were speaking, don't let your circumstances determine your stance. Continue to fight. Continue to remember who you are in God, because that's one thing you did. And that's one thing I admired during your time, was even though if things was happening around her, she may have cried, but she always got up. She didn't let her circumstances determine her stance and how she will go against things, because you kept fighting, you kept going. You remember who you were in God. Like, at the end of the day, your family can tell you everything, but it takes that decision for you to make, to know that I can keep going. I have to keep doing this. Because you may cry for a day, but the next day you're up and you still going. You didn't stop. Because some people, they'll let the circumstances determine their stance, where they're just like, I'm not going to fight anymore. I'm just going to crawl up. I'm not going to go ahead and go for it. I'm not going to go look for another job. Because at the end of the day, some people have said pharmacy may not be for me, and not go to pharmacy and look for something outside of pharmacy. But at the end of the day, you believe and you know what God told you, and you knew what you were capable of doing. So you kept going, you kept going, you kept going. Because you didn't let your circumstances determine your stance, look at where you're at now. So that lets you know, keep fighting, keep going, because those days when she was crying, when she got laid off, she don't remember those people's names. Even when somebody's trying to do something for evil for you, you keep going. And that's the thing I admire about her too, because she didn't pray evil will against them. And when you just let go and give it to God, because that's what you did. You weren't bitter. You wasn't like, oh my God, like this and that. Like, I was the one ready to go off, and I was doing, and she wasn't. And it just showed, when you let God take care of your situation, what can happen and what he'll do. When people try to break you and do things negatively towards you, because what they did, it was wrong, what they did towards you for that first company, where your department wasn't being affected, but they let you go.
To go back to that, like what she's talking about, like, I was the only black pharmacist there. I was in a town where there's not too many black people there. So a lot of things that I feel like were done against me was because of racism. I know that God put me in position for the right people to remind me of who I am. And even a young guy that I worked there with, he actually he said that he seen me coming in for my interview, and he said that so many people told him that he needs to go back to school, because I think he was like in his 40s or later 30s, almost 40 at that time. He was a technician for many years, and he said people kept telling him to go back to pharmacy school, and he was just like, I didn't want to go back because it's just like I didn't see anyone that looked like me. But then when I seen you and how you carried yourself when you came in, I was just like, I can go back to pharmacy school because now I know that it's somebody that looks like me, because this woman is about her business and I can do it too. If I went there because of that, then I'm grateful. Like, despite all of that, like, because that same person, what he said, he just graduated. He just graduated, and he's now a pharmacist. And to know that, you know, I inspired him in that way, God used me to inspire him in that way, it was all worth it. So all of them, all of what they say, it doesn't matter. I'm pretty sure people are going to say things about this, but at the end of the day, it's just like, if we're inspiring one person, I'm still applying that now. Like, it's worth it.
It is.
It's so worth it. So that's what I'm doing it for. That's what we're doing it for.
Yeah.
And one thing I want to make sure I say, like, with you doing this, with you going after what God told you to do, no matter how crazy it is, people that's closest to you, people that love you the most, they may tell you that it sounds crazy. Doesn't mean they don't love you, but God didn't tell them that. He told you. So show them grace, and when they see it, they will see it. You don't have to come and be angry and go off on them. At the end of the day, God told you that you're doing this with you and God. So when it's time for them to see it, they will see it. But you continue to be focused on God and do what He told you to do. I want to hear you all testimonies. I want you to leave in the comments. I want you to send us some emails. Our emails is going to be in the description box. Let us know certain things that you're going through. Let us know something that seems impossible right now. I want to hear your testimony, and when you take those 4 points and you apply it, what God is showing you in the spirit, that is possible. I look forward to hearing your testimonies. I look forward to connecting with you.
Thank you again so much for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you for our next episode where we use our testimonies to combat culture.
All right, y'all. See you later. Peace. Thank you.